I just keep going from here.
Yeah, you can, Chino. Yeah.
Everybody see the presentation there? So without getting into too many details on the technologies of it, basically think of it as the wristband that the patients get right now, right? A lot of the information that is scanned directly from that wristband, we're going to continue to do that. The only difference is that now that wristband is talking to all our systems and informing our intake systems such as EDAS, Vista, CPRS, Cerner when it gets here, if it gets here, and it also receives information from all the other alert and alarm systems that we have throughout the facility. All this is then managed from a central location at clinical stations throughout the area of operations. In this case, will be the ED for the piloting of it. One of the big things here is that dashboard, the digital dashboard that can go into the rooms. It can go at the bedside of the patient. It can go into the nurse stations. The nurses can see ahead of time exactly what's going on with their patients. They can inform that information that they were after. We'll be able to make that available to them. So the clinical signage and digital dashboard that we had before, this will provide for that. In addition, the workflow, as you can see right here in this area, is customizable to each area of operation. So in our case, currently, we are only targeting the ED, but as you can imagine, this can then be customized to all the other areas of operation. Thing in my case is this piece right here. Often we get the sales metrics. Sales tells you where we need to make improvements, but it does not ever tells us how. This will enable that, will tell us exactly what we need to improve and the reason why, because we happening. So if we needed additional personnel in the ED because there was extra veterans coming through there and the personnel that we do. At the end of the day, when we see what the ED did for that day, we can picture that with the reporting analytics on the day the ED took that many patients, that that influx. For the pilot, this is all proof of concept, right? The intent is to demonstrate that indeed we can do what I'm saying this thing does. So it's a total of 4 phases. Phase 1A is the kickoff. This is the phase that we are currently. This town hall was designed to open it up to the facility and enable everybody in the facility to ask questions.
Hi, Christina. How can I help you?
Enable everybody here in the facility, take questions, take feedback. This is for the facility. This is not something that I'm trying to push out to everybody. I really need to get positive or negative feedback so we can make things better. The intent here is to make our workflow better for the entire facility and change the way we're doing business. Okay. Phase 2 is a 5-week phase. It's basically installation of all the hardware and technology that needs to be installed in the facility to make this go. Phase 1C, which is the third phase in this phase, is the implementation. This is when we release the technology to our staff in AED, and they'll go use it, and then we'll get daily feedback from all of them telling us how well this is doing or how bad this is doing, and then we need to adjust accordingly. And the final phase is where we actually take it to leadership and show leadership that the progress or lack thereof, the outcomes, whether or not we made any differences in what we say we were going to make differences on, whether or not the workflow was improved, whether or not the metrics were improved, and show whether or not we achieved the goals that we set out to achieve. There are 2, based on the sale metrics, there are 2 specific targets that we're going to look at very closely during the pilot. That's a door to admission and admission length of stay. The target for the VA, as you can see on the right of each one of those numbers, is 150 minutes, and the other one is 240 respectively. Our last quarter, at the time that we had this presentation done, we were at 182, so we're about 32 minutes too late to meet that. And the other one, we were 351 That's give or take 149, I want to say, minutes too late for that. So once we deploy this system, the intent is to see whether or not we can meet target or actually reduce the target and improve our metrics. The roadmap for Albany, we started with the EDs. It's just a pilot phase. We need to take it back and demonstrate whether or not the system does make improvements to our operations. And from there, we'll have conversations, and then we start looking at where else can we make improvements in the facility. The intent is to consolidate systems in the facility, use the technology to our advantage. Single sign-on is oftentimes the providers and nurses alike are telling us that they're signing up to 3, 4, 5 different systems throughout the day. We want them to just sign up to their workstation and sign up to one system, and all the work happens for them behind the scenes. So they don't have to worry about whether or not they forgot to put something in one system, or as the case with the EKG, right? They do the EKG and they have to then backtrack trying to put that information in Vista because that system is not talking to Vista. Or if it does talk to Vista, it does not provide Vista all the information that needs to be provided for Vista to keep a clean record of the patient and the patient vitals and how the patient was administered during that visit. So, so it's something that can continue to grow into the future. That's the intent. It gives you a clear picture of your ops. So the concept of operation is daily. You can see your COP, what's called common operational picture. You see that every day. You see how well you're doing or where you need to make improvements. And this is just, if we were to adapt the system on a quarterly basis, how long would it take to have it implemented throughout the facility? So this is just a projected timeline if we were to accept and adapt the system for Albany. So there are other systems out there. One of the things that I keep hearing from everybody is that they're comparing what we are trying to do with various other systems that are out there that track patients or provides information readily available in dashboards about patients to the various different services. This is not the intent here. The scope here is to look at our systems where we are constantly inputting patient information, but we have to have an account or we have to log on to a separate system to get that work done. Every time you do that, you lose precious time that you could be spending with the patient. So what we're trying to do is to do a complete systems integration of all the critical systems in this facility, bring the patient to be a part of that overall system, and then have the output that facilitates the healthcare life cycle of the patient. Okay? As you can see, other systems do not do any integration whatsoever. So they continue to bring systems into the facility where they are designed to do one thing and one thing only. I'm trying to bring a system that turns the facility into one single platform. So the facility in itself becomes a technological apparatus that serves the veteran in a better fashion. And this is just a continuation of what we're doing and how other systems compare to it. All right, so now what I want to do is open up to the floor and contemplate your questions. We'll answer as many as we can.
So for the folks online, Chief Gibbons has a question. He's in the room.
Since we're tracking patients' location, are we going to get their consent to do this?
No, it'll be in the same fashion that we do it today. Today, we're tracking patients throughout the facility. They get a wristband. Let me get there. They get a wristband, right? And that wristband gets scanned. So it's the same thing because they already came into the facility and that consent was given the minute they became our patient.
My concern is that you're putting a tracking device on them, and as government, that would be, to me, a First Amendment thing of freedom of movement. you're tracking them, just like when we put, Project Lifesaver on people, we had to get consent.
It appears to be that way, but it's currently in use in 2 other VAs. The Department of Veterans Affairs already approved the usage of this device.
Then we're good.
You're looking at safety concerns and you're looking at availability of information in the device. So the device is not so much to track the patient. The device is designed specifically to expedite the patient visit to our facility.
Okay.
As many times, I'm just gonna give this an example to everybody. There's many times that a patient comes to the facility for a single appointment, and they get that wristband, and they have 2 other appointments, and then decide they wanna have lunch. The appointment people in the radiology or at the clinic is waiting for them, and they have no idea where this patient is. As far as the patient is concerned, I'm in the building. I'm just happening to go downstairs to have lunch. So when appointments become available, a window of opportunity to tend to a patient is available, we're the last ones to know, because we have no way of knowing where the patient is. The other thing is sometimes when the patient shows up at their appointment and they're scanned their wristband, they don't get all the information that they ED send out, to the next radiology department. So you get a barrage of phone calls go back and forth between 2 service departments trying to figure out what exactly the ED wanted this patient to do with radiology. Because the patient just showed up. Patient just magically showed up because ED said to the patient, go up to the 2nd floor, you need an X-ray. And they put in the console, they put the work order on it, but the people upstairs did not get a heads up because they were too busy downstairs. So the wristband facilitates this sort of communication between service departments and enables the facility to bring the veteran as a part of the system rather than excluding him from the system.
So who monitors the arrival? I mean, I have an iPad, I'm a practitioner. How do I know my patient's there? Is there another, like we have MSAs that's.
Right, in the same way the patient checks up at a window, that is when the patient gets the wristband. So from that moment on, the patient becomes part of the system.
I understand that. Now I'm going to radiology, right? So there's a receiver, there's somebody in radiology that knows, who knows that I'm coming and.
So those, the dashboards that we're talking about, they're gonna be placed in strategic places. That dashboard is gonna lit up, it's gonna make a sound, and it's gonna alert the individual there that a patient is inbound. And he's gonna show you exactly why they're coming.
Okay, so then there's an MSA that's gonna say to the.
Either a nurse station, MSA, somebody.
There's a
Right.
human body that relays that
Yes,
information. Okay.
correct. Good question though, Chief. We got a hand up on the audience.
I think Dr. Howard's good. Dr. Howard, is that you?
That's me. So I'm a little confused. I was under the impression that this required that the individual be scanned at each location upon arrival. Is that not the case?
That will be the case, Dr. Howard.
So they leave the emergency department.
Checked in.
They leave the emergency department. Somebody scans them out of the emergency department and then scans them in at the radiology.
No, yeah, it's automatic. So we will be putting readers at key places in the facility. So when the patient is close by and that distance is configurable, like we look for different distances anywhere between 3 feet and 100 feet. And based on that, the system will automatically update that this is where the patient is at, so that it doesn't increase overhead on the current staff to keep scanning them in or out. None of that will be needed.
Okay, so that brings me back to what Chief Gibbons was concerned about. And I didn't understand Chino's response, which is Mr. Jones decides he wants to go down to the cafeteria and have a sandwich. And we have no more idea that he's in the cafeteria than we do that he's at Panera once he leaves an area that has these trackers, correct?
So if you want to track a patient to Panera, you'll have to put a tracker there, but that's not what we are trying to do. We are only trying to track patients.
That's not what your intent is, but the concern is, and I think I'm understanding Chief Gibbons' concern, is that the government, we have patients who will be very leery of the government electronically tracking their movements.
That is correct.
So when you enter the hospital and you decide to get care at a hospital, you are giving up the rights to the hospital to track you within the facility only, not outside the facility.
Well, that may be your interpretation. I'd be interested to know what OGC says.
Actually, can I address that? Dr. Howard, the VA as an organization interprets it that way. When the veteran comes into the facility, they are at the care of the facility to include tracking. We do some of that when the patients for the CLC leaves the facility. So the tracking in the VA facility is not new. It's just not done widespread. Currently, various other VA facilities, they don't use the paper wristband that we use here in this facility. They use other types of devices, but the patients are tracked. I think that currently we are deploying DSS. What's the one that we're deploying currently? For the operations room.
DSS live data.
Right, and that is the tracking device approved by the Department of Veterans Affairs to use. So the notion that the government does not track their civilian population is correct. The civilian population that releases some of their rights ones that entered an airport or enters a facility where they require services given by the government, that's a different story altogether.
So what if?
Yes, the patient can decline to take it. You know, it's not, here's your wristband and we're going to give it to you and you have to wear it. If a patient tells us, no, I don't want to wear that thing, it stops there. So we're not forcing it down to the patients. They still have the option, but it's going to be explained to them the need and the why. So they are, you know, that's just going to be left up to the patient to decide. What you're going to find is that a lot of patients currently on their VA Connect do release their right, and they are being tracked immediately after certain surgeries are done by the VA in their own personal devices. So again, it's not new that some things are trackable and some things are not, but the VA has been doing this for a while now.
One other thing I would add is wristband. The application does give you the ability to manually track a patient. You can touch an icon there and say patient is here. So it's not necessarily it will not break the care process if a patient is stubborn and says, I do not want to wear this wristband. You still have a way of proceeding forward.
Right. These are all good questions, though.
Will it be able to get the MedRec? Because that's one of the problem points in every hospital. Accurate MedRec, especially at night when we don't have an RX and pharmacy doing it for us. Specific medication, especially opioids or Suboxone. And the patient insists I was taking it, there's no way to verify it. You know, at night.
I didn't.
Will it be?
Yeah. So the short answer is yes.
Do you want to repeat the questions?
Yeah,
The rest
yes,
of it?
people can't hear.
So medication reconciliation. If a patient is also going to the private physicians or they're traveling, many of our, they're snowbirds.
Right.
They live somewhere else. So if the medication, we had a patient today, a week ago, he was in Myrtle Beach, medication was changed. We had to call in and get info, how do we make it seamless, or if the system has the ability to pull in all those medications, there's a medication change, sometimes they don't remember the name, forget about the dose, what did the doctor or cardiology, whatever, recommend? And that's really helpful to us to manage them.
Yeah, so the question is medication reconciliation possible to do in the system?
Yeah.
The answer is yes. Will it be done in the pilot? The answer is no. There are two stages to medication reconciliation. One is medication reconciliation within VA, and the other part is medication reconciliation for patients who are seen outside of VA. So for doing it within VA, that would be included post-pilot. The reconciliation for information from outside VA. That comes with the health information exchange. That will be further out in the roadmap.
But it has the capability.
It has the
of doing-
capability to do it, yes.
and the
because-
same thing for medical records.
Same thing for medical record. When you do medical record, medication reconciliation comes as part of the medical record pooling. It's not done separately. You don't just do medication reconciliation, you do the complete medical record reconciliation.
But sometimes right at this time, it's disjointed, even in different hospitals.
Medication reconciliation is a complex topic. There are different phases for it. I can walk you through that as to what are the phases where it will be done. But yes, the answer is yes, it is possible to do it. Can you do it in the pilot? The answer is no. Can we do it post-pilot? The answer is yes, and it will be a phased approach. Medication reconciliation is not an easy topic. It's hard,
That's where we run into problems.
but the capability exists, and we will do it in a phased manner.
And the EKG uploading from the ER, that will be done.
That we.
In the band, in the wristband, can we include the LST and information regarding allergies? And
Yes, so it's not included in the wristband. We don't want to put PHI, PII in the wristband. What it will have the capability is when the patient shows up in your list of patients that you are doing, you touch that, it would have pulled all that information from this. So you have what marketing calls as one touch, instant access to all the relevant information right at the point of care. Does that answer it?
Right. So Rebecca, I know Chad is asking if the patient opt out of wearing the wristband, will it be able to use CPRs without this integration? And the answer is yes. Yes. Again, the wristband in this case is used mainly as a communicator between systems, the patient, and the patient healthcare life cycle. But it plays the same exact role as the wristband that we use. So there's no difference. There's no PI on the wristband, deposit on the wristband. The wristband is only as good as the time that is being used by a patient during their patient life cycle, healthcare life cycle.
it'll still have the last four and all, right? The identifying.
Well, it won't have anything on the wristband because everything is electronic, right? And the system is designed to cell tower. The ED wants to communicate with the radiology, and I'm the patient and I'm en route. Radiology, the closer I get to them, it begins to get all that information that the ED put on my console because I have the wristband. If I don't have the wristband, when I get to that window, they're going to want to scan whatever I have, which is that little paper. Okay. The system an opportunity to say, I don't want to wear that thing. I don't want to be followed. But as far as us managing the patient, all that information will be still there, and we're still going to be able to use the system to facilitate the care of that individual, if that makes sense.
There's another question here. Jessica Underwood is asking BCM. So that will stay as is. This does not replace the barcode that you have.
So let me rephrase that answer. Jessica, the answer is yes. And I want everybody to concentrate on the scope of this current initiative. For the pilots, the ED, and we are looking at only two of the cell metrics to see if we can improve on that. When we all go through that pilot and we get a better feeling to what it is that we are using and how to use it, and we can put it through the rigors, then we need to all come back to the table and decide as a facility with leadership ahead of that, whether or not this does indeed makes things better for Albany, or we just complicated things. And I'm just being honest, this is the people that we've been working this. If after the pilot, the feedback that we get is that we don't want this, that's the end of it. We continue to do business as we're doing them today. But if at the end of the pilot, you clearly see that there's benefits and goodness in concentrating the effort. So for every time you log onto a system, I'm going to give you that time back. That, in my mind, this is just Chino's mind, that's time that you get back to spend with the patients. It currently is very limited because you're being asked to do a lot of things and to log on to a lot of systems just to get the patient healthcare life cycle complete on one single visit. So this is going to streamline a lot of that. The more you use it, you're not going to break it. The more you use it, the more we'll know whether or not there's goodness behind this. We bring a lot of systems into the facility to improve the quality of healthcare and to improve your workflow. And the feedback that I've gotten so far is that's just another box for me to log on. Okay, so we're trying to get away from that mindset and give you something that actually shows you're going to log on to your network and then you're going to log on to a system and the system is going to do all other things on your behalf. So that is a huge leap of change from what we and how we do things today. This is why we wanted to go with a palette, so we can get everybody to touch it, feel it, provide us feedback, let us know how well we're doing, where we need to improve. The idea of the BCMA, yes, it can do that too, but that will be down the road. It's something that we want to grow, crawl, walk, run. Any other questions? And if you don't have the questions today, the pilot started. This is really for the facility. You see me down the hallway, something comes up, you have an idea, you have an additional question, ask it. Every day morning report when we meet, you can provide feedback right there about the pilot. Chino, I went down to the ED, I saw them do the A, B, C, D, and E, and you have a question. This is all about the facility, looking at how we do business and how we can do better.
How are you going to introduce this in orientation? How will you roll this out to new practitioners, new nurses?
During the pilot phase, you mean?
Yeah.
We can add it.
Pediatrics is trying to get new leaders.
So we can add it during, I don't know how you guys do the introduction for the nurses. I know I can put it on the NEO, one of the slides, and talk about it there. So that's not a bad idea at all.
What's the logistics, right? So when will this be operational?
3 months from now, we got to build the infrastructure.
Okay, so then we have time.
Yeah, we have time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're coming next week.
No. It's a 6-month pilot. The first 3 months is to build out the infrastructure,
Okay.
work all the kinkies, put up all the interfaces, make all the connections, provide all the new equipment to the AD, do some training with the AD, and then the AD will put it through the rigors.
Joe asked a good question. Will we be surveying the patients to gather their perspective on the new experience process?
Yes. They're an integral part of the pilot, so patients are going to provide us feedback and let us know whether or not the new way of processing it when they come through the AD. There are 3 outcomes when people come to the AD. They get discharged the same day they get sent home. They get further diagnosis as required, or they get admitted. Right? Those are the 3.
Or transferred, if they need to be transferred.
So they need to be transferred, so 4. So we are going to test the process through all those and see how well we do with the new system. Questions?
Trish is asking if we can maybe have another forum and invite some of the other hospitals that are using it, like a Q&A.
So, Dr. Langdon can speak to that. She visited one of the facilities to get a first-hand experience, and
I can talk to it. So we went to the other locations where the system is being currently used. That's Cheyenne VA Medical Center and Salt Lake City VA Medical Center. They're using the application in 2 separate departments because they saw the need there, but their scope is limited to just those 2 departments. We are using the same application and we're looking at cell metrics as a way to scope wise for the application. So even though it's being used in 2 other facilities, they're not using it in a way that our architectures and our system here is going to be used. Harry up. for one. So, and then Big VA tanks basically said you're using it for the same thing. So they're not maximizing the technology. They're minimizing the technology, in my opinion.
They are restricting it to a very small portion of it.
Right.
And you cannot grow from there because your entry point in a hospital is 1, 2, or 3. It can be primary care, specialty care, or emergency. This would take it across the whole facility.
One of the questions I think that if I can hijack the question that's been asked, did they like the application? What's the feedback that we got? You know, and they loved it.
So I just, my 2 cents in this, I've used Epic before and Haiku. This sounds a lot similar to that. And Epic is much easier to use.
Yes.
So, you know, hands down, is way easier. I was there when they started, I think CPRS in 2000 or something around that time. So I was in the VA then. And that was a new thing and nothing has changed after so long.
Right,
So
right.
we definitely, even Cerner, I've used Cerner too, and I've used Epic. Epic is the best. And Epic can be modified in different ways.
Right.
I've been in different hospitals, use Epic, you know, personalized patient and everything. So that can deliver it. I think it's definitely better than what we have.
Right. It's
a good-
very
it's a good
similar.
Comparison, it's very
Yeah.
similar to having an Epic-like experience
Yeah.
on top of Vista.
Right.
But the difference is we are not creating another repository of patients that stays in Vista. So as we are rolling that out, if you are used to using CPRS and this, you should go seamlessly between the two. If some patient, if sometimes you forget to use this and you end up using CPRS, no harm done. When you come back here, you will see all the information.
And yesterday we were with Mr. Tekwani and we discussed it for a couple.
Can we speak up so everybody can hear?
Oh, yesterday, Mr. Tekwani spoke to us for about a couple of hours and he described in a lot of detail and it was pretty impressive.
Mm.
And then I saw that it was really similar to Epic, Haiku, and the Dragon.
Right, and you're not far at all. You're absolutely correct. It is similar to Epic. The differences between Epic and what we're trying to do here is the systems integration, right? You currently, and nowhere in the VA, will be a trailblazer in this practice. Nowhere in the VA are systems being integrated. They're operating independent from one another, creating more workload for the staff. So what's different between Epic and what we're trying to do here is that we are trying to look at what it is that you use in the day-to-day to facilitate the healthcare of a patient, fully integrate it and make it into one solid system so you don't have to worry about logging on 10 times throughout the day. So all that time that you will otherwise use to facilitate the goodness of all these systems, because they're not bad systems, right? You only have to worry about this one platform now, and that platform that informs all these other systems on your behalf.
Epic is also much faster.
It is, absolutely. We just gotta, show it and show the facility that it's possible. Technology is advanced enough now that it makes it possible, that we don't need to have 10 boxes in the room to do the job of one. Yes, I don't know if you guys heard me, but that's what I said, that when you ask the feedback of these other facilities, they love it. They love it. They wish it was across the VA, it was standardized, it was part of the VA. Those decisions are above my pay grade, so I can only just demonstrate it here locally and show you all how good or how bad this can really be.
Would you please send us this presentation? Because
Yes, we'll make the presentation available.
I can
to
drop it
everybody.
in the chat box and I can send it out.
And John, that is correct. So that is correct. You're not wrong on that. Again, we're not just doing one thing. I think that everybody's concentrating on what we're trying to do and thinking that we're only doing one thing. We're doing multiple things and using technology to transform the facility, patient healthcare life cycle. That's everything from A to Z. Other places are using some of this technology, but they're not applying the integration of systems in the same way that we are trying to do here at Albany. So you're not incorrect, you're correct, but we're doing it different here at Albany. Any other questions? So I will encourage everybody for the next 6 months while we're trying to get this thing going to do not hesitate to ask questions. Comes to the ED as frequent and as much as you can, so you can see it in operation, so you can see exactly how it's put to work. You can see for yourself what work. Here from the staff in the ED, they're gonna be the people sort of like hands on the fire, if you will. So hear directly from them, and then at the end of the 6 months, we'll have another town hall and we'll send out surveys throughout the facility and get direct feedback from everybody before we take the results, because we have to write results and reports back to the network leadership on this. Okay. So
Thank you, everybody.
And we'll say